G'day, back on the couch. I have the... You know what? Fuck this, I'm cold. G'day, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about me and media. Now, media has always been a big important part of my life, as it has for most human beings' life. I've told you guys before that I think entertainment should be one of the basic things for humanity. Food, shelter, water, uh, hopefully safety's on that list, but entertainment should also be on that list. See, as I've explained to you guys before on the channel, entertainment is critical to me. Without it, I think I would go completely insane. So it's kind of a big deal. I love entertainment not only because of the stories that it presents to me that do entertain me, but the influx of new ideas and ideologies and philosophies, and perhaps something new that I might never have gleaned unless I saw this kind of thing before. Whether it was read it, hear it, or see it, I think that new ideas and new experiences are the point of living. So, as you can see, that is pretty high up on the list of big deals of life for me. So, here's something that I've been thinking about, that if all goes well, and I'm able to, progress, and 2017 becomes a great year for me, and I'm able to expand my knowledge of music, expand my knowledge of comic books, and just go completely all out and delve into what I would like to delve into and find out as much as I can and educate myself in more mediums. There is a problem that I foresee happening. And it might be a couple of years from now, it might be 30 years from now, it might be, hopefully it doesn't happen. But I'm going to call this the restless immortal syndrome. Now, the restless immortal syndrome is something like I've always considered ever since I saw that one episode of Vandal Savage in, I think it was Justice League, where he managed to kill the entire Justice League except for Superman. And Superman was sent off into the far, far future. And eventually they reunite. And when Superman comes across Vandal Savage, he is completely changed. And he is completely different. And it is at such a point where he's just like, not even the person we know anymore. But when I saw that episode, it got me thinking of immortality isn't exactly as great as people make it out to be. And when I say that, don't get me wrong. If you were able to live comfortably as an immortal, and this is why whenever someone's like, hey, would you like to be immortal? I'm always like, okay. There's a couple of things that would really fuck you up. If you're, and this is a tangent, I know, but I really feel like I have to explain this. If you're an immortal, and you're the kind of immortal that lives on despite how your body goes. Like if you're immortal unless you get your head cut off, that's not the definition of immortal. If you're an immortal, that means that no matter what happens to you, you will exist. That's like if you are pounded into the fucking grains and atoms, that your consciousness will somehow be floating around and you're still there. And I think the worst thing for an immortal would be having all your limbs cut off and your head put inside a metal box and buried in the ground for millions of years. Because that is truly hell. Let's say that kind of immortal who was able to remain intact for all time and safe for all time was able to do what they wanted. It made me think. And I know the creators of a simple cartoon probably weren't thinking that a kid was going to go and think about this, but this is what I thought about. If you were immortal for such a long time and you were able to just witness everything humanity had to offer, and you were just able to be like, okay, I have seen people for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, ultimately, I think you would be wanting new experiences. Now, for someone like me who has already told you guys that new experiences are kind of like a big part of existing, and I think that finding new ideas and new experiences is critical to life, I'm hoping that by finding and discovering more media, that I eventually do not become so jaded or so lack for new ideas that I just there's just nothing out there anymore. Like, to put it like this, because I'm trying to word it, but it's kind of difficult. Can you imagine if you went to the movie theater and you saw the same movie that you had seen 100 times over, but the only difference was maybe the actors or maybe that the setting? Like, don't get me wrong. People will be like, oh yeah, but people are remaking movies right now. That's a problem because like that's not a new idea. But at the same time, let's take RoboCop. I love RoboCop. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And the remake, which is hated on quite a bit, was also fine to me because I'm like, okay, you took that story and you gave it a twist and you changed it slightly, but I'm fine with that. How many times could you change that RoboCop story before you had the exact same story? How many times could you make that story interesting enough that you could still get something out of it every time you went and saw it? How many times could you remake something? Because let's take, for example, Tarzan. Tarzan's been around since fucking a story in a book. Ultimately, the person who read that book will have a different experience from another person who reads the book just because you're imagining it. But once you create film and you're like, this is what the story looks like, how many people can tell that story without it looking the exact same, without, with different actors or a different place? Well, at what point does that movie have no additional value? Or is the value only placed on it by the individual watching it? With film, I've studied film. And none of this is like in a scholar or schooling sense. Just from personal research, I see directors and I go through it, I watch every one of their works and I see their film techniques, and even though I might not be verbose enough to explain where I've seen that before, whose technique it was, I can internally realize that this is a shot that's done somewhere else, or this is something that's been, or a story that's been twisted for the sake of this. Like, I remember when we went to see Avatar, the blue one. I know that there's like a whole bunch of Avatar stuff, but the one with the blue aliens. And I was just like, hey, this is like Dances with Wolves. And that at that point the movie was ruined for me because I'm just like, oh yeah, that happened and that happened and that happened. New setting, so I was able to be like, go away with a couple of new experiences because I'm like, okay, cool, aliens. But ultimately this is just a story about arguably racism, industrialization to a native population, colonialization. Those are all themes of the story, but I'd seen them elsewhere done better. And with video games, it's very rare that I don't see, hey, I've seen this done elsewhere better. Which is weird because video games are so intimately tied in with technology that you can usually make something better, quotation marks, because you have more utilities. You have the ability to take something that you don't have to... For example, if you had the limitations of an NES cart versus a PlayStation 4 disc, obviously you're going to have a lot more difficulty crafting the narrative that you want in that NES cartridge than if you could literally be like, oh yeah, I want an orchestral soundtrack, I want to have cutting edge CGI, I want to have, amazing voice acting, I want to have all these concepts and high ideas that I have. You're not going to be able to do that in an NES game, but you can still try and come across with your point as best as you can. But it's weird because I have a lot of times where I'm just like, this was done better on a Super Nintendo game than it was done right now. And it's just, I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because of those limitations that people have to really think what is so important. And I realize this is a rambling video, but most of my audience realizes that I go on random tangents and ramble quite a bit. But this restless immortal syndrome, I don't want to I don't want to become one of those people that's just like, I've seen it all and I don't have any, there's nothing that I can glean from anything anymore. Is is there like this point where you reach where, let's say that there is only 1,000 songs out there. If you reached 500 songs, would that be the cutoff point? Where you would be like, everything after this is going to sound something similar because I've heard 50% of all the songs that exist? Or would you be able to gain a new appreciation for the other 50% because you could say they're taking this and changing it? That is something that I'm struggling with, and that's the next philosophical thing that I'll probably have to fight with and figure out, and trying to understand and come to grips with. I wonder if there's a point where, because Ryan and I really love comic books, will there ever become a point where Ryan and I will have read so many comic books that eventually we'll just be like, this is just like X, or this is just like Y? And Jesse and I both like anime. Will there ever come a point where we will reach that event horizon, if you will, where we're just like, we have seen so much stuff, this is just like this, but I just hope it's done better at that point. But if you watch Naruto for the first time, I'm sure Naruto is great to you. But if you've seen like other shonen anime before that were made, or it's just a, this gets into that even deeper question of, is anything new actually good, or is it only bad because you've seen other things before it? Like, if I was to sit down right now and watch, let's just take, for example, what's something currently that's about to start airing. If I was to watch Black Clover, one of the main criticisms of Black Clover is it's a shitty shonen. It's been done before. It's just like Naruto. It's just like One Piece. All that. I've read all those criticisms about it. But at the same time, I know Jesse really likes Black Clover, and he's seen pretty much all of Naruto, and he knows a lot about One Piece. And it's just like, he has an appreciation for it, and I wonder why. And if maybe there's something that I am not realizing. I ultimately realize that there is no answer to this question, and I'm just pondering to the camera what I think to myself. But it would be cool to try and figure out if there is such an event horizon in a human's life, or if there was any way to get past that line and say, you know what, this is good for what it is. But at the same time, as I said in a couple of videos ago, Dark Souls 3 was the best Dark Souls. So, I mean, that's new, and it took upon those previous elements and improved. So I guess, while Restless Immortal Syndrome is a thing, and that eventually you could reach a point where you wish you weren't immortal because you had experienced everything that life had to offer, hopefully life continues to surprise you, and hopefully there is still reasons that you could want to go on. And because, for all intents and purposes, as far as I realize, I am not immortal. This is probably not an issue that I will come across, but I'm just hoping that there will always be cool and interesting ideas out there for me to consume rather than not. Anyway, guys, this has been my massive ramble and poorly explained video. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys later.